Welcome into Texans Live, presented by Methodist. I'm DP City, along with my good friend Drew Doherty. We are up here in the West Club of NRG Stadium. And unless you've been living under a rock, the big news today is Lovie Smith will be named the 5th head coach of the Houston Texans. We'll be hearing from Lovie Smith shortly. Right behind us, the press conference will take place there, along with Nick Caserio, general manager. And a little bit later on in the show, we're going to have Lovie Smith himself here chatting with us, and we'll be taking some fan questions as well. So if you've got some questions, drop them in, and we'll be asking the head coach of the Houston Texans your questions. But first, welcome in, Drew. An exciting day for this team.
Exciting day indeed, because this day doesn't happen very often. You got to think about it. Dom Capers in 2001, and then you had Gary Kubiak in 2006, Bill O'Brien 2013. It does not happen very often, so this is fun. Lovie Smith is a guy who we're going to talk a little bit more about clearly as the show goes on, and we'll hear from him in just a moment, as well as Mark Vandermeer, Cal McNair, GM Nick Caserio. But this is a guy who is everyone's very, very excited about, both current players on the team and former players who have played for Lovie Smith and gone on to the Hall of Fame. So it's going to be a fun day, and I can't wait to get going.
We're going to have a busy day ahead of us. But first of all, let's take a look at Lovie Smith's coaching career, because this will be his third stint as head coach in the NFL. Obviously, last year he was associate head coach and defensive coordinator. Did a lot of nice things for this defense. Really improved in a lot of categories, specifically takeaways. And then, of course, with the Chicago Bears, led them to a Super Bowl, led them to 2 NFC championship games. And here he is now back with the Houston Texans in a different role. We take the associate off of his title. He is now the head coach. He's from Big Sandy, Texas. He's back in his home state of Texas, and we're happy to have him as well. And a few things that came out with the announcement yesterday. Pep Hamilton will be moving up to offensive coordinator. Pep Hamilton was the quarterback's coach last year, and Frank Ross, who was our special teams coordinator, he will remain special teams coordinator. So the big question, which I'm sure Lovie's going to get asked about, is what's going to happen at that defensive coordinator position, and how they hope to continue some of what they built on last year, specifically with rookie who's now in his second season, Davis Mills.
Yeah, no doubt. And we just saw Ross and
we did. They walked by a little while ago.
By us. So those guys are going to do what they did last year as far as Ross goes. And then Pep Hamilton, I think this is a very big deal that he's the offensive coordinator, because think about what this offense has been like for the last 8 years or so. You've struggled to run the ball when you wanted to. We got kind of spoiled by what we saw here during the Gary Kubiak years with that zone system. The Texans have not been able to run effectively in quite some time. Does Pep Hamilton, does he get that changed? Do we see things differently in the run game? Because that's something that when he's been in charge of offenses, like we saw in Indianapolis about a decade ago, they were able to do some nice things running the ball. So does that change? We're going to hear from Pep Hamilton about that over the weeks, months to come. And then in the fall, whether it comes to fruition or not. But yeah, I can't wait to see what that means to the offense with him in charge.
But you're looking at a little B-roll of Lovie Smith from last year, calling the plays on defense. And, if anything should get you excited, it's what he was able to do in one season as defensive coordinator. 11 different players with an interception on this Texans team, and that set a record in the NFL. That was the most in 2021. Also, that's going from last in 2020 in takeaways to what they were able to do last year.
Yeah,
and
tied for 10th last year.
Yeah, and 25 takeaways, tied for 10th, like you said, and they intercepted 3.1% of opposing passing attempts. That was the 5th highest rate in the league. So Lovie brought his, emphasis on takeaways to this defense, and a lot of players really enjoyed playing for him.
Yeah.
And, this defense went from a 3-4 to a 4-3 scheme. So I imagine that will stay, obviously, with Lovie Smith as head coach. But did a lot of nice things for some of these players. And there's going to be quite a bit of turnover this offseason. So
no doubt.
The good thing is you've got a little bit of consistency with Lovie Smith there.
And two things about that. Yes, they did jump in takeaways, but that wasn't enough in Lovie Smith's mind. He has the goal of getting 3 takeaways per game. They weren't able to get that. They did jump quite significantly, which was great comparatively with 2020. But they didn't do exactly what he wanted to do. And then the rest of the defense, he wanted to see improvement from as well, because it's nice getting those takeaways, but he wanted to shore up some other things as well. He wants his defenses to score. He wants to take the ball away. You can bet there's going to be a huge emphasis on that, a continued emphasis on that, and we will definitely see a little bit more of that as far as layering in of talent over the years to come, and certainly through the draft and free agency.
All right, and if you're tuning in, it's Texans Live presented by Methodist. We are about 5 minutes away from Lovie Smith giving his press conference, his first press conference as Houston Texans head coach, and a lot of people filing in behind us. We just saw the McNair family all in tow, kids, Cal, Hannah, and everybody joining the fray. We saw Pep Hamilton and Frank Ross. Everyone's very dressed up for this really big occasion, and I imagine Lovie Smith, we saw him a little while ago. He arrived at the stadium earlier today, suit and tie, and it's a big day for him, his third stint as head coach in the NFL. And I imagine we might see some players here
maybe so.
as well,
and
maybe.
It's fun that you bring them up because there's been a pretty nice reaction on social media from a lot of current Texans. We saw guys like Tavier Thomas and Jonathan Grenard chiming in and saying how excited they are for this because they've been with him under a year. They saw how things worked with him, and Lovie Smith is making his way here into the room, and he's going to hit to the podium in just a moment or so. But, yeah, the current guys on this roster, pretty pumped for the change and the addition of Lovie Smith.
A lot to be excited about with Lovie Smith being named head coach, and he's making his way over to the podium along with Nick Caserio. Mark Vandermeer will be introducing them, and I think Cal McNair also will be involved in the introductions as well. So as soon as we get them up to the podium, we will break away and show you live the press conference as it unfolds, as well as questions from all the local media that has gathered here today. And then afterwards, we will bring you Lovie Smith on this show live and ask some of your questions firsthand. So excited to be able to bring that to you. Texans Live presented by Methodist.
You know, we talked about some of the current players that are excited for him. I had a chance to talk with Hall of Famer Brian Urlacher, who was a linebacker, flourished under Smith with the Chicago Bears. Talked with him last night, as well as Devin Hester, who he's a Pro Football Hall of Fame finalist. He's going in. I don't know if it'll be this year, but he's a Hall of Famer. There make no doubt about that. Both these guys very, very excited for Lovie Smith's third opportunity to be a head coach. They can't wait to see what he does. They're big fans of him. They're pumped. Devin Hester said he's the type of guy that you trust him so much, he believes in you so much that you're ready to run through a wall and break your head open for him. Now, I don't think the Texans want to do that, but they're willing to, perhaps, if that were to come too. But we don't want to see anybody break their heads open.
Lovie Smith, he's coached 53 players to the Pro Bowl and 17 first-team All-Pro selections. So, I mean, it explains why players are a little bit pumped to be playing for him. He has really seen some great players in his career.
And both those guys, Hester and Urlacher, said he's a player's coach, meaning if they have an idea about something, he's willing to listen. He's willing to change things. Urlacher said sometimes in practice at the beginning of the week, they would be trying something out, and the players would be like, hey, this is not going to work. This will not work in a game situation. They let Lovie know, and he'd scrap it, and they'd move on to something else. He kept defenses very, very simplified, made it so you didn't have to think too much. You could just react, go after the ball, play quickly, play aggressively. And that's something we saw a bit of last year, and we saw an evolution really after the bye week. The Texans defense really improved and was much better in coverage. So evolving is a word that you don't hear too much about Lovie Smith, but Brian Urlacher brought that up and said he was really good at it during his stint with the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, I think adaptability definitely something that we saw in Lovie Smith's defense last year as the season progressed. But his emphasis on takeaways, it started in OTAs, and I know, we've heard that over and over again that defenses emphasize takeaways, but it was really amazing to see in preseason how they started off hot, how they had the back-to-back weeks during the season with 5 takeaways in back-to-back weeks, and they sort of kept it going all along. And the defense really kept this team in a lot of games, especially when the offense struggled. You had changes at quarterback. You were unable to run the ball, but the defense really kept this team in most games.
All right, timeout, DP, because when the greatest walks in, we got Andre Johnson rolling into the building here, Pro Football Hall of Fame finalist. He's a Hall of Famer. Make no doubt about that. But he's here for the press conference. It's good to see Andre.
Yeah, we are actually seated towards the elevators that bring everybody up from the lobby.
So they have to walk past us.
So they have to walk past us. And so we're doing our show, but also making mental note of who's walking by us. And so they're trying to not make eye contact with us because I think they're afraid Drew's going to scoop them up and bring them onto the show.
I might.
Which Drew's not allowed to do because Tyler Marcotte would have a fit if we did that. But we are going to go live to Lovie Smith. I think they are taking some pictures. They're getting ready in a little bit. So we'll bring that to you as soon as they start speaking. And we'll bring you that entire press conference in its entirety, as well as bringing you Lovie Smith live on our set as well. Drew, I'm sure there's a lot of things that Lovie's going to get asked about. I think namely what's next for this coaching staff?
Yep.
And it's going to be a fine balance because you've got an existing coaching staff, sort of. You've got a few departures on the assistant coaches. He's going to have to fill those gaps. You want to build on what you started last year, but obviously winning 4 games is just not good enough. So
No.
you've got to improve drastically. So what's that balance between some continuity? And you know what? We'll get to more of that. But first, let's go right live to the press conference with Lovie Smith.
And welcome as we have a monumental day for this franchise. The introduction of the 5th coach in the history of the Houston Texans, Lovie Smith. We're going to hear from Cal McNair in just a second here, and also statements from General Manager Nick Caserio up here on stage, and of course, Lovie Smith. After their statements, our Director of Communications, Omar Mazoub, will come up here and moderate the Q&A session here. But to kick it all off, won't you please welcome the Chairman and CEO of your Houston Texans, Cal McNair.
Thank you, Mark. Welcome, everyone. This is an exciting day. I'm really glad we're able to do this and do this in person. Our goal here is to build a program that can compete for championships and sustain long-term success. My family and I are extremely competitive, and the last couple of seasons have been disappointing and hard for all of us. But I believe in Nick Caserio and the vision he has for our football team, and I see the pieces coming together. I've never seen a more thorough, inclusive, and in-depth process than what Nick just went through with our coaching search. Our entire organization is a much better place this year than it was last year, in large part because of Nick. But all that work and progress behind the scenes needs to start showing up, and we understand that. I expect to win at everything we do, and there's pressure to perform in our organization. I've had an extreme amount of respect for Coach Lovie Smith for years, and that only grew last season and throughout this whole process. So I'll turn it over to Nick and say a few words and introduce Lovie as our head coach. Thank you.
Thanks. Good morning and welcome. Try to bring a little levity to the air. I know everybody's disappointed I don't have a vest on, so I'll save those for the season. So, and no Silicon Valley references either, Landry, so you don't have to worry about that. So, but first of all, just want to thank everybody for being here this morning. Want to first off thank the Smith family, Lovie's wife, Marianne, Miles, Matt, Cara, and the soon-to-be baby here on the way. So this day is really about the Smith family, and it's about the McNair family. Just a word about Cal and Hannah. I just appreciate their support throughout this entire process. They put a lot of faith and trust in what I'm trying to do, what we're trying to do as an organization. They've stood behind me every step of the way, and I'm blessed to have their trust, and thank them for backing me throughout this process. I'd say the process in and of itself, was a long and thorough process. My responsibility was to do as much work as possible. We started, second week in January, and then we arrived at an endpoint here today. There was a lot of conversation, a lot of dialogue, I would say, with a lot of different people throughout the league, players, coaches, executives, former head coaches, different people. And my job was to take in a lot of information throughout that process and try to put ourselves in a position and make the decision that I feel is best ultimately for the Houston Texans organization. And I believe that we've arrived at that point. Coach Smith is one of the most respected figures in the league. He's well respected throughout the league. He's well respected in the halls of NRG. I think a lot of us were able to see that this year. So as we worked through this, as I worked through this and got to the end point, I realized the best decision, the best opportunity for this organization to move forward was with the choice of Lovie Smith as the next head coach. So we're all excited. I'm excited. We have a lot of work in front of us. I think Lovie and I both feel the same way. We know what the road ahead looks like. We have a lot of work to do. We're committed to doing that work. So to Big Sandy Zone and to the best gray beard in the building, I'm going to introduce our next head coach, Lovie Smith.
Thank you, Nick. There's a lot of people. Just think, I'm a high school product of our great state of Texas. And a dream that of course, as you start playing football, you want to have a chance to play as long as you can. And to me, I always wanted to be a coach. So I say that most guys playing high school football here would like to someday lead their home state team. I can't thank Cal, Hannah, Miss McNair enough for having the faith in me to lead our great program. Also can't thank Nick enough. I've had a chance this past year to work with Nick in a lot of different ways. And as people talk about interviews, sometimes you have an interview, for a couple hours or whatever. Nick got a chance to. I had a chance to work with Nick for an entire year, and for him to see me on what I believe, how I believe football should be played, how I think you should coach our young men. So there's just so much I was able to get from that. I wanted to be a coach all my life, and a lot of that is kind of based on what I had in a coach growing up. Think about this also. My high school, my seventh grade basketball coach still coaches football here, high school football coach here in the city of Houston. My first college coach lives here in this great town, so really pumped up about it. The love of my life I met on a blind date 42 years ago. We'll celebrate 42 years today. My wife, Mary Ann, and then also the rest of my family I have here. I have a chance to work with an outstanding linebacker coach on our staff, Miles Smith, and his lovely wife, Kara, and another one of my sons, Matt, that was here. Also some special people that I have here with me today, or guys that will be leading, will have a prominent role as we go forward, playing winning football. I've known Pep Hamilton for a long period of time and his wife, Nicole, and I've tried to hire Pep a couple of different times and it didn't work out. But it's kind of a perfect storm for him to be able to lead our offense. He'll be leading our offense this year. Someone I didn't know, but this past year allowed me a chance to get to know, was Frank Ross. Frank is an outstanding special teams coordinator. He and his wife, Christina, and their lovely daughter here. I'm so excited about them wanting to join our staff. A lot of the people in this building have helped me an awful lot. I got a chance to get to know during this year. So thankful for them. But to sit in this role, in this position, it's about winning football games and doing it a certain way. My philosophy a little bit, I'm old school, Again, I'm from a little small town, Big Sandy. It's about winning football. And we had a simple formula. We played good offense. And our good offense that Pep will be leading, of course, is you need to be able to run the football. There's a time we need to be able to pass the football, but doing it in a certain way. Tough, hard-nosed football, disciplined ball. That's what you will see from us. On the defensive side of the football, being able to, score just like on offense. It's not, as we look at it defensively, it's not a turnover. It's a takeaway of getting takeaways. And just, again, playing a certain brand of ball. Then on special teams, you cannot win football games without that third element, special teams. There's going to be, hopefully, one of the all-time greats that will be going into the Hall of Fame based on what he did. A guy had the chance to coach with special teams, but it's important. But the fourth phase would be the fans. Cannot play winning football without you. I have seen a day when it's tough playing outside at our NRG Stadium. And it's our responsibility to bring the fans back and get them excited about the product we're going to put on the football field. And I guarantee you we can do that. So it's a great day. We're excited. We all are. As we go forward, look forward to working hand in hand, side by side with Nick to get the Texans back where they need to be. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, guys. We're going to take a few questions. I just ask that when I call on you and you take the mic to introduce yourself and then direct your question at either Nick or Lovie so we know who the question is directed to. So we'll start with John.
John McClain from the Chronicle. Lovie, congratulations. How did you feel to not be part of the process, then get the last interview, and then finally get your third head coaching job?
Thank you for the question, John. known John a long period of time. Well, how it feels, as I said, a goal of a lot of us, of course, would be to ultimately lead our professional football team. As you go through the process, I've been a head football coach for a lot of years and gone through a lot of the process. In the end, you ultimately end up with the guy that's you feel like is right to lead the program to the next phase. So that's, for me, I had a great job last year being the defensive coordinator here. I got to see the potential of what we could do here. And and the opportunity, of course, presented itself to me late in the game, I was just excited for it because I know what we can be around here.
Mark?
Lovie, Mark Berman from Fox Houston. A two-part question, Lovie. One, what were your emotions when Nick told you you were his guy? And part two, where does this moment stack up for you among all the great moments you've had in your career?
You can imagine the excitement that I did have when Nick did tell me. There's 32 of these jobs, in the country. So they have an opportunity to lead one. And there's an extensive process that Nick went through to get the best person that he felt could lead our program. So, of course, you can imagine, how I felt with that. What's the other part of your question?
Where does this moment stack up amongst all?
I thought that's what you asked. I mean, my wife, Marianne, is here, so it was pretty special, that blind date that we went on. That was a pretty special moment. And there's been a lot of others. We're expecting grandchild number 9 and 10. A lot of special things have happened to us in our family. But this moment is pretty special. It's not often you get a chance to lead 3 professional football teams. I don't know if there's a guy that looks like me that's had an opportunity to do that. So that's pretty special. But just what I know about the organization and the potential. As you look for players, you're always talking about the potential that you see in an athlete. Just to lead a program like this, I know the potential on what we can do. And we kind of started the process this year.
Ed?
Ed Werder with ESPN, and I have a question for each of you. Lovie, I'd like to know your take on what you just said. Nobody who looks like you has coached 3 different teams in the NFL. What's your take, given your experience on the Brian Flores lawsuit against the league?
Well, I don't know enough about the laws. This is what I can speak on. I realize the amount of black head coaches there are in the National Football League. It's Mike Tomlin, and I think there's me. I don't know of many more. So there's a problem. I mean, it's obvious for us. But after there's a problem, all right, what are you going to do about it? There's a lot of different talk on how and what you should do. But I think it always comes down to action a little bit. And I know one person that wanted to do something about it. And it's just not about the color of your skin or who you want leading a program. But I know Cal and Hannah, of course, they said this is what, maybe there's a problem, or not maybe there's a problem, this is what we're going to do for it. I'm here. So, and what we're doing, and it's just not about me being here right now, on how head coaches are selected a little bit. A lot of it is, okay, a lot of offensive coaches are leading their programs right now. 2 Super Bowl participants have guys that have made their living with offensive football. I understand that. Well, I know as we go forward a little bit, I see Pep Hamilton right here, and I see his color, and he's going to be calling plays for us. And maybe it's about getting guys in a position for people to see exactly who they are and what they can do. I understand the problem, and I know the Houston Texans are doing something about it to make it better.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, Nick.
Go ahead, Ed. Yep, sure.
Specifically, that happened last week, the lawsuit was filed. How did that influence, if at all, getting to where you are now?
Yeah, good question. I would say didn't affect us at all. I would say just speaking specific to Brian. So, I've known Brian a long time, personally and professionally. I have a lot of respect for Brian as a coach and a person. He was a part of this process. He's been a good coach in this league for a number of years. Part of my responsibility was to spend time with as many quality candidates as possible, and Brian was one of those. As it pertains to the individual lawsuit, I would say from the beginning of when we started our process, call it, January 14th to now, there was multiple conversations throughout the course of, I would say, the last few weeks with a number of different candidates, and that was pretty fluid. I think this process in and of itself is very fluid, and we have. We got a fire. But do not use the elevators. Don't use the elevators. All right, I'll try to talk over the microphone. But anyways, this process is pretty fluid, right? And you have to take information in, but I would say there were conversations with Brian after that took place, so that really didn't affect the process at all. A lot of it was me taking information, processing a lot of information, talking to various different people and different parties and different candidates, and ultimately arriving at an endpoint that I felt made the most sense for our organization, and that's what we did. That's what happens when you have an event upstairs.
Just give us a second and see if it turns off.
Stairwell, stand by for further instructions. Do not use the elevators.
We can talk over a few, Omar. That's all right. We can have little laughs. We'll make it work.
Brian Smith, Houston Chronicle. Nick, were the Texans planning to hire Josh McCown? And the second part of that is, will Josh McCown be on Lovie's staff?
Yeah, there were never plans to hire anybody until we arrived at kind of an endpoint. And I'd say as it pertains to staffing, Lovie and I will have discussions on that. Lovie will have a lot of input. There'll be a number of other coaches that will have input. So the next step for us really after today is to kind of continue to build out the staff. And I'd say we're making some progress on that. What that final constitution looks like at the end, I'm sure it'll be some moving parts here as we go.
Sarah?
Sarah Barshop, ESPN. Lovie, you were talking about how you feel like you're helping Pep put him in a position, and that's kind of your job, is helping other people who look like you. Was there anyone who helped you do that and put you in this position?
Stand by for further instructions. Do not use the elevators.
You want me to translate that for you?
Yes, you're going to have to ask that one more time.
Sarah, go ahead. It was about Pep and just about.
So you were talking about how that you think part of your job now as a head coach, black head coach, is to help put other people who look like you in a position to succeed, like you did with Pep. Was there anyone who helped you put you in that position that you feel like you can thank for this?
Yes, great question, Sarah. Yes, first talking about me, I had a chance to work on my first staff in the National Football League was on Tony Dungy's staff. A black man that gave me an opportunity. And from talking to him back then, it was about, and it's just not the coordinators. I think we have a responsibility and for me being a black man, to give as many guys, back then it was about an opportunity. I think it's important to give as many black coaches as possible an opportunity to work up through the ranks. As you look at my last staff in Tampa, my last staff at Illinois, I've heard the statement, there's not enough qualified guys. That's a misnomer a little bit. But to answer your question, I think the ones of us in this role, and not just a black head coach, but all coaches in general. You look at our league, of course, majority of the league is with black athletes. You can find qualified black candidates to work themselves up. Once you see the look of our staff, once it's all done, completed, you'll see that it's just not talk going into that. There's a way to do it. We have a lot of young black coaches that are going to do great things. Of course, Pep Hamilton being one of them.
Brooks, go ahead.
Brooks Cabana from the Houston Chronicle. Nick, you said that there wasn't plans to hire anyone until it reached an end point. After the lawsuit went through, what were some of the things that allowed you to help make that decision? Because obviously there's things you probably wanted to know about that and reaching your ultimate decision.
Yeah, nothing really changed. Again, I'd say these processes, there's no direct path to get to your ultimate endpoint. There's a lot of, I would say, information, again, that my responsibility is to try to process that. And I think to keep that communication open, I think the McNairs have been very supportive. We had a lot of dialogue, I'd say, throughout the process over the course of a 2 to 3 week period. So you just try to stay on track, you try to stay on course, and ultimately, I'm a very pragmatic, kind of internally driven, or internally process-oriented individual, and ultimately it was my responsibility to kind of work through everything and then make the decision that, I felt was best. And, I'd say Lovie was a big part of those discussions, at different points throughout the course of, the process. He had an opportunity to kind of speak on our program, once there was an opening that was available, Lovie was able to kind of give his viewpoint of the program. What are some of the things that we did well? What are some of the things we might be able to improve upon? So to have that type of input as you're going for somebody that was here in your building, certainly resonates and carries some weight. So again, ultimately, I was trying to be very thoughtful. That was my mission and my goal, and that's what the McNairs asked me to do. And that's what I try to do the best of my ability and ultimately make the decision that, I felt was best for our entire organization.
And then to follow up on that, Lovie Smith being a part of the staff, you talked about, how that relationship helps you. Going into it, what were you looking for in a candidate, and having gone through other candidates outside the building, what is it that ultimately led you to someone who was already in your building?
Yeah, ultimately it's about what's the right candidate for you and for your building, I would say. And we talked about this at different points. Head coach and coaching in general is about leadership and it's about teaching, right? So those are the two core elements. Whether or not you have a philosophical belief on one side of the ball, you're an offensive coach, you're a defensive coach, and how that translates onto your team or not. So I would say those core elements, and then to have a plan, Lovie kind of articulated some of the things that he believes in, offensively and defensively. And I'd say one of the things actually that was interesting, just overall from my perspective, Lovie and I didn't really know each other last year, going into the season. And I would say systematically, defensively, it was certainly an adjustment or something that was different, relative to what I was accustomed to being around in New England, from a front structure, from a number of different things. And it's interesting, Lovie and I kind of laugh about it now, but we had a lot of good discussions, a lot of good dialogue and conversations, and sometimes some friendly disagreements about maybe how we were playing a certain thing or who was doing it. And to his credit, he was pretty open-minded and listened. And I think, not to speak for Lovie, but the year two of a system, you can make a few more tweaks and modifications and adjustments. So I think as we build on what we did in year one, kind of putting the foundation in place, kind of look at what some of those things are going to look like in the second year, I think those are some of the things as you just kind of go from year to year, that are important to take into consideration.
And as you, and also as you, I've been doing this a while, had a chance to think I want our offense to look this way, and then you see, well, you can do it this way. That's the advantage when you had a chance to lead 3 programs on exactly what you want to do, what you want the offense to look like, want it to look like. And of course, defensively, I have some beliefs that's been instilled in me a long time on what it takes to play winning football and how the special teams, offense and defense goes together. And you're right with Nick and I. Nick is a football guy, so to see exactly when you don't know each other and then to have to go over and explain exactly why we do everything is always a good thing. That's why I'm so excited about it, us as we go forward.
There's no fire, by the way. Ron, go ahead.
All right, this is for Lovie. Ron Hughley, Sports Radio 610. My concern to you is with everything that's happened the past couple of years around the Texans, both on and off the field, the production hasn't been great. I'm curious, what sold you on coming to the Texans? I mean, I know that you have to sell yourself, but what was sold to you to want to take over here?
Well, from being in the state, there's history. You got to look to history to tell you what it can be. It's always about that. As you look for players, it's just not the finished product that you look for. It's about the potential that you see. And being here this past year, I saw the potential of kind of starting from the bottom floor and then start building it up. And then as a coach to see and just know, again, experience tells you what it looks like here and where you can go. And I've had a chance, those other experiences, to be in that situation. And just, who wouldn't want to play here in this stadium? A football city supporting you with great players. Hopefully one of our all-time great is back in the back. Andre have an opportunity to go into the Hall of Fame. But our history behind what we do and what we've done here. Is that correct? Did I? I was kind of looking a little bit. It could have been you also, all right? But our history that we have in this program, and again, I'm going back to the Texas roots to know all about that. And to just look where it's not long ago, we weren't in the conversation about a team going, have an opportunity in the playoffs, of course, to get to the Super Bowl. It's there. And I know working together with Nick and of course the commitment we have from the McNair family, we can get back there.
Brandon.
Brandon Scott, Sports Radio 610, and I know Pep is in the building as well, but I'm just curious on the changes to the offense, what they will consist of, what that would look like, considering that's one of the areas where y'all needed the most improvement. Are y'all going to run a different scheme? Like, what's that going to look like? And I had a follow-up.
Well, and we have time to get into details a little bit later, but you got a chance to see some of some of our players. I mean, it always starts with the quarterback, right? I had a chance, Davis Mills. I had a chance to see him from a lot of different angles this past year. Early on, he wasn't playing, and he was going against the one defense each week. So I got a chance to see quite a bit of him. And then, of course, got a chance to see him as he moved into our starting role. But it always does start with the quarterback. And I know it's a little broad right now, but being able to run the football. And Pep he has a lot of experience going a lot of different ways. It's just not one thing you're going to do. But what it's going to look like, we're going to have an offense that's going to score points, to put our guys in position. There were times, as you look through the course of this past year, you got a chance when we were really doing it the right way, you got a chance to see what we could possibly be.
And then the second question, kind of going back to, and I know you guys don't want to comment on litigation, but some of the substantive points that Brian Flores' lawsuit was trying to make was not just the hiring, but sort of the process. And he points out how a lot of black coaches are put in less than advantageous situations, and that sort of perpetuates sort of this cycle of not being able to diversify the candidacy pool. Like, did you guys understand that? Is there anything to be said for the overall situation around when you hire a black coach? Last year you hired one at a team that wasn't going to be very good. This year you guys still have some challenges. I mean, is that something that you guys have to sort of consider the substantive issue of that as well on top of the hiring itself?
Yeah, and I'll answer that. I think just specific, look, the numbers are what the numbers are league-wide, okay? Like, nobody can refute those and nobody can argue with those. But again, there's a couple different buckets, right? And that's more of an issue that I think the league has to address, and I think they're committed to addressing. And I think collectively, all of us, whatever our roles are, we have to be willing and committed to be a part of that change as well, whatever that looks like. So again, I mean, when you run a football team, you want to try to run a football team that has good people, good players, and good coaches, whatever that construct looks like, right? So our responsibility is to try to stay true to that and try to find people that fit those roles. And I think what Brian articulates, the numbers are what the numbers are, and that's just the reality of it. And it's about finding solutions. I certainly don't have all the answers. I can't even begin to fathom what that answer or solution is. But to be a part of the solution, that's what we can make a commitment to doing. And really, the most important thing for us is to what's right for the Houston Texans. Let's focus on our football team, and let's do the things that we feel make the most sense for us.
Nate Griffin, Fox 26. Question for you first, then Lovie. I want to ask you, you had to have some sense of comfort having Lovie Smith with all the experience in the same building. What was it that finally got you there? And then for you, Lovie, are you going to continue running the defense?
You want to answer that first? Go ahead. I'll let Lovie answer.
Well,
He's excited
that's an easy one. This past year I had so much fun. I've never gotten away. I've been a head coach a while. A lot of those years I was heavily involved with the defense. I'm at the purity of the sport. I love coaching, and it's just not coach talk, having my hands on. So to get around and answer your question, I love calling plays last year. I will be calling the defenses this year. Just look around right now. Most of the head coaches that are offensive guys, they all call plays. For some reason, a lot of the defensive guys don't. I think I can help our program the most right now with me in that same role. So I will be doing that.
And to answer your question, the search kind of embodies that to some degree. So what I mean by that is I was asked to be very thoughtful and very process-oriented and just be consistent. And I think when you kind of look at Lovie on a day-to-day basis, like that kind of defines who he is as a human being. And you're able to see that. It doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low. has certain things and convictions that he believes in, and he's well respected throughout the course of the league, not only in our building, but outside of the building as well. And I'd say I have a respect and appreciation for Lovie for who he is and what he's done over the course of his career. And I certainly learned some things from him this year as well. And I kind of had to open my mind a little bit, open my heart, and realize, there's maybe a different way to do some things. Again, part of it is kind of having constructive dialogue. And I think there were times that we had that. I know Frank was in some of those meetings, where we had some of those dialogues before the game about rolling the kicking game and the starters playing on special teams and their role. And Lovie has his beliefs on that, and he's not afraid to share them, but in a very respectful way. But again, I think if we can respect each other as a part of the process, whether it's about a player, whether it's about the scheme, whether it's about who we're using where. Again, when you watch us play this past year, we had a lot of players that kind of changed positions, right? Lonnie started at safety, then we moved him to corner. That was a discussion that, we had at different points. And, maybe, I could have had that conversation a little bit sooner, or we could have, so again, I think there's some things that took place that there was kind of a two-way street. And I think at least we both, I would say, were open-minded to some degree, but also understanding that he has certain beliefs and convictions, and I have certain beliefs and convictions, but ultimately you have to arrive at an endpoint collectively, because in the end, it's not about one person, it's about the collective whole, it's about the entire organization. So I think if we adopt that mindset, if we continue to adopt that thought process about putting the team before yourself, then at least it's going to give us a starting point, and then ultimately it's going to be about how well do we go out there and execute. Can we score enough points? Can we get stops in the red area? Can we get stops on third down? Can we not turn the ball over? Can we be the least penalized team? So again, all those things ultimately are going to fit together.
Matt. We'll go Matt and then Aaron Reese.
Matt Musil, KHOU11. Lovie, when did you find out you were a finalist for the job? And then two, when you did find out, did you take a step back and wait a minute, the last guy you hired lasted one season. Maybe I should think about this. What was your thought process? And when did you realize that you were a finalist?
Well, as far as a finalist, I don't know when I became a finalist. I just know that once the head football coach's position was open, and that was by going forward. I was under contract. Of course, I was still working for the Houston Texans, and being in that role that I was, associate head coach, my opinion has been asked on a lot of different things. So I did give my opinion on what I thought we need to do going forward, things we need to improve upon, and all of that. And sometimes when you're just doing your job, most of us, as we're just doing our job, we're being interviewed for a job, you could say. So I don't know exactly when I became a candidate. I just know that, just like all of you, I know Nick interviewed, and McNair family interviewed a lot of different people. And for me, I was in the background giving advice. And after they looked at those people, they got to see me in just about every situation. I've done it before. That's all I know. Just knowing when I got the call, I was excited and knew that I could lead our program to that next level.
No hesitation about it?
No hesitation at all. There are 32 of these jobs. If we talk about the opportunity, every time I've gotten a job, it's been a situation. First off, you don't get jobs unless maybe there's some things that need to be improved upon. And you're just looking for an opportunity. Once you get that opportunity is what you do with it. And I'm excited about this opportunity. I know we can do some great things.
Aaron Reese from The Athletic. This question's for Nick. Nick, you guys announced your other finalist about a week ago, and then there was a gap for another week before you mentioned Lovie as a candidate. What was the process for you in between those two things, and is that when you first started to consider Lovie as a possibility?
Yeah, we can speak a lot about the process. I think there's some things that, are mandated by the league, how you handle things. I would just say, generally speaking, I probably talked to more than 6 finalists or candidates, different coaches, different head coaches, different discussions, different dialogue. Again, I think that's just part of the process that you have to go through as you're working through these things. There's no direct line. There's no straight way to get there from A to B. Sometimes you just got to take in a lot of information and just kind of work through it. And again, like we talked about after the season, there were times when, Lovie had the opportunity to visit with the McNairs and just talk about our program and share his thoughts on that. So the most important thing is to just kind of keep the dialogue moving, and it's a very fluid process. And that's just, how some of these things go. So fair or not, like, you guys can blame me for taking as long as we did, but I know because everybody was kind of sitting on the end of their chair on pins and needles. But again, my responsibility is to the McNair family, be as thoughtful and resourceful as possible, and ultimately just make the right decision, for the organization. And that's where we ended up with Lovie.
We probably have time for about 4 or 5 more. We'll go Brian and then Christy.
4 or 5, wow.
Brian Bearfield, Houston Style Magazine. First of all, congratulations, Coach. Right here in the front. I'm right here, Coach.
We're
right here
in front. Yeah, I'm looking all the way back in the lights. I'm sorry.
No, I just want to say,
that was glasses on.
first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
Second of all, you were part of this staff on last year, and you watched what transpired on the field, and you all didn't end up with the record that you all would like. How much do you take that personally now that you are the head coach?
Well, I took it personal then, being a part of it. I mean, a record is what, of course, is what it ended up being, but we had other opportunities. But as you're building something special, you have to go through adversity like that. What I saw is that guys, we did have a lot of fun, though, of just watching guys improve. And we were competitive throughout most of the time. But it's about winning football games. And I just think your second year, a lot of times there's a big improvement from game 1 to game 2. And I think your second year, and for me to be in a situation where it's the second year to be able to take it to that next level, that's what I'm excited about. Disappointing then, but I see good things on the horizon.
Christy.
Christy Reekin from the Associated Press. Lovie, I wonder, when you take over a team that's won 4 games in 2 straight years, what are realistic expectations for what you can do this season?
Well, Anna, you're right, 4 games. I do look at history a little bit, and, for a guy from Big Sandy to be here, you have to be able to dream. But again, history tells you a lot. Just looking to this week, I can't wait to see the Super Bowl, and I know the Cincinnati Bengals won 4 games the year before. They're playing for it all this week. It can happen. I'm sure the year before they went through a lot of adversity. They saw some signs, and the coaches kept coaching hard. We have an excellent coaching staff, and the one thing about being in the building a little bit, we're far along in that search to get our coaching staff in place. I talked about our leaders, but we're further along. Again, history tells you can make a quick turnaround. I don't know exactly how many games we're going to win, but as you look at our season this past year, we won 4, we had opportunities to win more. I don't think it's a big gap between 1 and 32. And if you get the right people together, you can achieve some great things. We have some pieces in place for us to do well. So,
Kim.
Kim Davis, Chalk Talk. One for Nick, and then follow up with Coach. Nick, obviously, Coach Smith has a wealth of experience, so there's no question about that. Can you talk about the collaboration, and when it comes to game day decisions, do those lie with Coach, and can you help us with that process?
Yeah, I think once we get into the season, we'll figure out what makes the most sense. I think, and Lovie and I have talked about this, and Pep and I have talked about it as well, and I know Frank, we've had dialogue as well. Just my role is to kind of be a conduit between our staff on the coaching side and what we're doing on the field, and then kind of on the personnel and scouting side when we're evaluating players and trying to identify the types of players that we want to bring into the building. So I'm kind of in that middle ground. That's kind of my background and kind of how I was raised and developed. It might be a little bit different than what maybe some folks are accustomed to, but that's okay. I embrace it. And again, my responsibility is to serve our staff and to serve the players. Like, that's the most important thing. And if I can provide some insight and I can provide some assistance in one capacity or other, whatever that is. And a lot of times too, and I know, like my role on game day, right? So maybe it's a little bit unique relative to my position, but a lot of that is taking information in, just having an understanding what happens. Because as an example, let's say you're watching a game as a casual fan and you see the right tackle, blows the assignment, right? Or the defensive end runs scot-free, right? Okay, why did that happen? You automatically say, the right tackle, the guy's a bozo, he made a mistake, and then he got the quarterback killed. Well, maybe the tight end was actually supposed to chip on that play, and he went the wrong way in the chip, so he's the one that ME'd on the play, but he makes the right tackle kind of look like a donkey. So then you go, wait a minute, what happened? And if you're just watching and evaluating just on the outside without a thorough understanding of what actually took place, it can kind of lead to some rash decision making. So my job, is my role, I kind of see it sitting right in the middle to be able to take that information back and forth. And if I can be a resource one way or another, ultimately that's kind of how I view my role and responsibility. And whatever that looks like, whatever Lovie and I feel it makes the most sense, then I'm going to go ahead and do that. If Pep feels there's value in me doing something to help him, like it's at the team above the self. It's not about one person. It's going to be about the team, and that's kind of how we're going to continue to build this. And the players and the people that come in that building are going to have the understanding. Quite frankly, if they don't, then they're not going to really be a good fit for the Houston Texans.
And Coach, can you talk about, you guys had a lot of turnover last year. We know there are a lot of free agents this year. Have you had a chance, I know it just happened, but to talk to any of the players? And are you hopeful that some of the players that maybe only had 1 year, that you'll get back a large number of the players you had last year? Talk about personnel a little bit.
Well, just, once I found out I would be the new head football coach, I did start the process of, I wanted to talk to as many of our players as possible. There's quite a few. Hadn't been able to talk to everybody right away, but I wanted the guys to know how excited I am. A lot of them I was able to form, of course, great relationships with. It is unique when you come in and have that many guys that are on short-term contracts, but sometimes you get the best in people. As a football coach, every year I coached, I felt I was coaching like it was going to be my last year, and I wanted everybody to see exactly who I was. I think that's what we got. We got to see the best in a lot of our athletes we had on our team this past year because they were on one-year contracts. A lot of them we would like to come back. But there's a process, and we'll go through that process. That's what I'm excited about, of just watching video and coming to a common ground on exactly who we want. And then, I've been a college coach too, and there is some recruiting involved. All of these things is required, of course, in my position. And I know ultimately we're going to be able to get a good group together, from draft picks to free agency. I'm looking forward to taking all those steps together.
We'll see how good of a recruiter he is.
Cody.
Hey, Coach. Cody Davis from Sports Illustrated. You've been a part of this league now for 20 years now. From the inside, what do you think this league has to do in order to get more African Americans or minorities in general to get more of these head coaching opportunities that you spoke of?
Well, for me personally, yes, I have been there a long time. All right. I think it's the system that you have, and from being a coach, in a lot of the teams, of course, they're dominated by people, by black athletes, and I've always encouraged guys. You can kind of tell the guys when they're playing on the ones that could become good coaches, and I've kind of encouraged that. And then people in positions of authority throughout, head coach, general managers, you got to be deliberate about trying to get more black athletes in some of the quality control positions just throughout your program. If you get that, they can move up. That's one way to get more. It's not just an interview of interviewing a black guy. It's about having a whole lot of guys to choose from that look like me. And it's just not about talk. You look at my staff, that's what I believe in. And then letting those guys and letting them show you exactly who they are. That's how we can increase it. Then it's left up to people to choose. We have an opportunity to choose. That's how I think you get it done.
Okay, we'll go last one for John.
I have one for each of you, please. Nick, how did you feel about one of Flores' attorneys saying the only reason he didn't get the job here was because of the lawsuit? And Lovie, since you and Pep coached together with the Bears, how have you seen him evolve as a coach, and how important was it to have him to preserve the continuity with Mills?
I'll go first, I guess. So, again, the most important thing was for us to stay true to our process and kind of focus on the things that we were doing. Things that are said externally or statements that are made, my responsibility is to the Texans, and that's where it's going to remain for, as long as I'm here working for the McNair family.
And you said Pep? Well, Good. Well, how much, back then, as you go back then, you know, we're trying to win every game, of course, then. Word gets out on the guys that are bright, that are doing this, that can help you win football games. That's what was told to me about Pep Hamilton back in the day. You start doing your research and you start talking with him. If anybody spent time with Pep, you kind of see what I'm talking about. And experience. Pep went through, as I talk about the ranks, Pep came in here, worked his way up there. And if you could do a good job, people ask, how can I move up? Just doing a good job where you are. That's what Pep did in the quarterback room. Then as a coordinator, and I've just kind of watched his career, he had an opportunity. And as you give guys opportunity, they show you exactly who they are. And that's why I'm so excited about what he's going to bring to us.
And how important was it to have him to preserve the continuity with Mills?
It was a must, as I see it. You know, one of the first things, of course, that I did right away, Pep, we need you. But we have a relationship too. And Pep Hamilton had a lot of opportunities to go a lot of different places. You talk about, the question was asked, can you get it done here? Why here? Because we've been around here. And we kind of see exactly what we can do. But Pep has an expertise. As you look at his background with what he did in San Diego with Herbert to, of course, what he did with Davis here. He's a fundamental coach that has a defensive mentality on toughness with the running game and all of those things. And I'm excited about him being on our staff and seeing exactly what, and our Houston fans will be on what he's going to do.
Awesome. Thank you guys very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Welcome back, Texans Live, presented by Methodist. You just heard from Lovie Smith, along with Nick Caserio, general manager
And
here.
the fire alarm.
And the fire alarm a few times. But all got sorted out, all as well, as we just wrapped up the introductory press conference here at NRG Stadium up in the West Club. Drew Doherty and I join you once again. Lovie Smith's doing his press rounds, and he should be making his way in your seat in a little while. But first, let's sort of go over the high points of this press conference and some of the key takeaways. Drew, what'd you take away
Lovie Smith will be calling the defensive plays, so I don't think you'll see a different defensive coordinator. Pep Hamilton, obviously, is the offensive coordinator. He's calling the plays. He's very impressed with Pep Hamilton, excited for Hamilton to be the guy here on offense. Said he wanted to hire Pep Hamilton at various points throughout his coaching career, so that was pretty interesting to hear. And then he's very impressed as well with Frank Ross, the special teams coordinator. So they are pretty pumped that he's involved. And joining us now is
We're pretty pumped
Mark
about this
Vandermeer,
as well.
the voice of the Houston Texans. Mark, you doing all right? What was your big takeaway? We just covered the high points. Lovey's going to call the plays on defense. He's very excited about Pep Hamilton. He's going to be the guy on offense calling the plays. What'd you see from this, and what'd you hear from this, other than the fire alarm and these guys talking?
My big takeaway is I feel short in this chair. Other than that, though, no, I feel like this organization is in really good hands with Lovie Smith. You know, when you look at his history, when you look at all the seasons in Chicago, 9 campaigns, Super Bowl appearance, championship game appearance, the amount of big games that he's coached in, that is a huge factor in all of this. Look, I don't really care about what happened at Illinois. If it was really good, people wouldn't care. It wasn't that good, all right? When has Illinois been good lately? Not that recently, right? I go back to Jack Trudeau and Tony Eason for crying out loud. I think Lovie Smith in this league is a legitimate championship contender head coach. The numbers speak for themselves, and I'm excited to see what he can do here.
I thought my big takeaway was, I know there were going to be a lot of questions about the interview process, but the fact that Lovie Smith was still working in the building from January 14th when this entire process began, and he was actually giving feedback on some of the candidates to the McNair family, and really won them over with his insight, them as well as Nick Caserio, because he said he gave a lot of insight as to what could have been done better moving into next season, what they liked about last season, and obviously being in the building and having firsthand experience, that weighed really heavily with Nick Caserio and the McNair family.
You know, we talked with Gary Kubiak a year ago, basically, and he said one of the big changes from when he went from being a head coach with the Texans, a first-time head coach for almost a decade,
right,
to a few years later being the head coach in Denver. He said he learned so much from failing, succeeding, having some hiccups along the way, and taking some of that and applying it and jiggling it when he got to the new place, and it helped make him a better coach. Lovie Smith's had that now 2 times, Tampa Bay and Chicago, and he kind of has the added benefit of knowing the personnel, knowing how things operate in the building on game day, at practice, and so on and so forth. I think that could be a very big positive for Smith and the Texans.
I think Tampa Bay, look, I've looked closely at this since this became a prospect, and Tampa Bay is a write-off to me, right? You go 2-14, Josh McCown, we all have heard of him. He started the bulk of those games. And they get the number 1 pick in the draft, and everybody in Tampa is excited about the number 1 pick, who happens to be Jameis Winston, a sure thing, right? Obviously, that didn't work out as well as planned, but they went 6-10 the first year with Jameis, and he put up some decent numbers. But then that's it in Tampa. Given more opportunities there, maybe it's better. But forget about all that, Drew. I think you're right about the second and third chance guys. Think about these coaches I'm about to name who have won Super Bowls in their second or third chance. Gary Kubiak, Mike Shanahan, Don Shula, Bill Belichick, Pete Carroll. The list goes on and on. Give Lovie a chance. I'm not saying it's going to happen here for sure, but give it a chance for good things to happen here. Build upon the success, whatever success you had last year with the offense and defense, and let's see where it goes.
Well, Lovie Smith himself referenced the Cincinnati Bengals, who won just 4 games, and now we're playing in the Super Bowl this week. He said every team goes through adversity before you get to that big championship game, but he at least knows what's going on in the building. They've got a quarterback that they can really get behind. He likes what he's seen with Pep Hamilton. Pep has worked with Davis Mills. You're not really starting from scratch. It's a unique situation because normally when you hire a brand new head coach, you got to look at everything from top to bottom all over again. But you've got a good starting point that you can really build off of and improve.
Well, there's no doubt, and I think that it was a big moment in the press conference when he said he's going to call his own plays, right?
Yeah.
That Lovie, who had done a good job last year in the takeaway department, top 3rd in the league. I know some of the other numbers don't look so good, but I think it was a better than the numbers say performance by the defense last year. We all watched the games. This team was in so many games in the fourth quarter. 9 of the losses were 1-score games in the fourth quarter. They kind of just slipped away. The offense obviously needed to be a lot better to help take some of the heat off the defense. And I think that you have a guy here who's going to build off of that. And some of the players that really found success here, Tavierre Thomas, Kamu Grugier-Hill, these guys weren't exactly household names to us going into last year, and now look what they've done. And I think you're going to continue to build. You have more draft choices. You're going to bring in another crop of free agents, and Lovie's going to get to be the head coach. It's a positive.
Something you just said there, Mark, is very important. I think if you get a little bit more out of the offense, that really helps out the defense.
Sure.
You're off the field more. You get less of an opportunity to get burned. You're also seeing year 1 to year 2 of Davis Mills. That's a very big deal. And he gets to do so under offensive coordinator Pep Hamilton, who was his quarterback's coach. And you got to cross your fingers, knock on wood, this run game must improve somehow or some way. There's nowhere to go but up, because around here the last 4 or 5 years, it has not been what we got spoiled by back in the Kubiak days. But you got to think they're going to run the ball better, do things differently up front. And if that is the case, this defense improves just purely by not being on the field as much.
I think that's a huge point, and that's not a B-side. Boy, is that a dated reference. That's not a B-side to this press conference. It's a 1A after the 1 of Lovie Smith being the head coach, is Pep Hamilton being the offensive coordinator and what he's going to bring to the table here. He's got a big canvas. What Lovie said about the offense here today was, all right, we're going to be tough, run the football, throw the football accordingly. There wasn't a whole lot of detail there. Pep has this huge operation to handle now, and he gets a chance to really rev up his career because he was the offensive coordinator for Andrew Luck and the Colts back in the day when they went to the AFC Championship game back in 2014. So I think that, and that's the last time they won the division, and Pep did a nice job with that crew. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what he builds here with Davis Mills. And Lovie Smith was very clear that Davis Mills is starting quarterback. They want to see what he can do for an encore, build off of that.
I mean, Davis Mills has a little bit of continuity with Pep, obviously from last year, but then coming from Stanford, playing for David Shaw, who's got his ties with Pep because Pep coached with David Shaw. So it really helps that he's got that. He also, Justin Herbert, we played against Justin Herbert last year, was having a great year until he played, obviously, the Texans. But Pep Hamilton's been linked to a lot of big-name quarterbacks that have played really well early on in their career, and you hope that Davis Mills can really build off of that. The last 5 starts of the year, we really saw Davis Mills come into his own. 9 touchdowns, just 2 interceptions. It seemed like as the year went on, he got better, he improved, he was seeing things differently, and you just hope that upward climb continues and that learning curve starts to slow down for him a bit.
I like that Lovie and Pep get along well, that they're going to be aligned in whatever the vision is offensively, and we'll see with Lovie at the helm of this thing and Pep in control of the offense what they can do. Because you mentioned Mills, number 1 in the red zone. I know it's not a huge sample size, but it was a pretty interesting stat to me. And number 2 in deep ball efficiency. What? It happened. Look it up. So you continue to work off of that, but they got to run the football. We all agree. Lovie said it. They got to run the football. How do you do it? I don't know. Let's add to the mix. Running backs, O-line, whatever you got to do. Pep coaching it. Run the football better. Everything's going to be healthier.
So Pep's calling the plays on offense. Lovie's calling the plays on defense. We haven't brought up Frank Ross. He remains the special teams coordinator. Did some nice things with that unit last year. Lovie Smith has been involved in special teams throughout his coaching career. We saw it out on the fields over across the street quite a bit last year during practices, during training camp. Lovie Smith's involved with special teams. Devin Hester talked about it when I got a chance to chit-chat with him last night via Zoom. It's a very, very important component of that. Lovie brought it up during the press conference. I thought it was very, not important, but very key that in addition to offense, defense, and special teams, he said the fourth component of winning football here was the fans in Houston. We saw the dip in attendance. We saw that a lot of other teams' fans were in this building last year. Lovie wants that to change. Lovie wants those fans to show up. He wants to give them a good product to cheer for.
I think the other team's fans thing is a league-wide thing.
It is.
I mean, it happened here, I get it, but
we saw it in the playoffs
the availability of tickets on the secondary market,
yep.
Easier than ever to score these digital tickets and transfer things around, and you know how that works. But it's a good point, Drew. I mean, I'm glad he brought it up.
Yeah.
I'm glad he brought it up because
you don't see coaches bring that up in press conferences.
Right. This is why you're in business. Is it's entertainment for the people, right? And the people who come to your games have to be first and foremost the season ticket members, and also the entire city of Houston. And he mentioned that, all right, and so did Nick. And I love that because that's what this is all about: getting better, getting the city to be proud of this football team, and taking the steps toward that. And I think they've taken a gigantic step this week in naming Lovie Smith the head coach. And on the Frank Ross thing for a moment, more continuity, all right?
Yeah.
You have guys, they know where to park, they know where the practice field is. Look, I'm kind of being facetious here, but I think it's big that you know the division, all right? So you can evolve from one year to the next, and you know the building, you know the personnel that will be here. I know there will be a lot of changes, not as many as last year, but there will be changes and additions. We just talked about that, and I think that really helps to have a lot of the same faces and people here who were around last year as you can take a big step forward.
Yeah, you are watching Texans Live presented by Methodist. We've got Lovie Smith coming up in just a bit. He's doing his press tour, but back to Mark. We got Mark joining us now. You emceed, you introed Lovie Smith.
Yeah.
How important is it that he's from Texas? I feel like that has got to win over the fans. I talked to him last year in camp, and he was just so excited to return here. Obviously, he never foresaw that he was going to be the head coach just a year later, but I mean, how much do you like the fact that he's from here?
Well, he's the fifth coach in the history of the franchise, but he's second in two key categories here, which top two is good here. All right, he's the second coach to have NFL head coaching experience coming in. Nobody else had it other than Dom Capers and Lovie Smith, who coached in a Super Bowl. And Lovie Smith is getting ready to join you right now.
All right,
thank
we
you
will
for the
make
time.
way
Mark
for
Vandermeer is
the new head coach of the Houston Texans, Lovie Smith.
Yeah.
We'll be answering some of our questions. We'll be debriefing after the press conferences, and also we'll be taking some fan questions as well. Welcome in. First of all, congratulations, Coach.
It's a great day for the Smith family and, of course, hopefully for all Texan fans.
All right, your third stint as head coach in the NFL. I mean, with every job, you sort of learn as you go.
Yes.
Third time around, what do you think that you might do differently? What have you learned from your previous head coaching jobs? You've had a year in the building, so you know this team pretty well.
Well, I think the simple answer is that there's no simple answer. What I'm going to bring is that I think every time you have experience in something, you get better and better at it. And have an opportunity to lead three different programs from just what I believe in offensively, defensively, special teams. Some of the things I won't change, and that's how you treat people and how it takes everybody to have a successful organization, successful football team. That's what I'm going to bring. Every day to me, the best that I have. Everything that I know, what I can give, I'm bringing to the table each day. Just picture game day each day. That's what I'm going to try to bring. In my experience, in any situation, I don't think there will be many situations I haven't been a part of. That's what I'm going to bring to the table. And I think I have an expertise, and I know staff-wise, from being in that many different positions,
had a chance to meet a lot of different people. In your third time, you have an opportunity. I know I want to work with this guy. So putting this staff together, most important thing you can do as a first time or just your first days on the job, head football coach, it's about staff. And I can't wait for that.
You know, you bring that up and you said in the press conference, hey, I wanted to hire Pep Hamilton a few different times in my career.
Yes.
Now that you got to work with him for a year in the same building, what's got you most excited about him being your offensive coordinator?
First off, he's a football guy. He's gone through there are certain steps you have to take. Pep has gone through all of those. When I hired him the first time as a quarterback coach in Chicago, he's not the same guy now. Yeah. We've all, but I saw how bright he was, how he dealt with people. He's a detailed guy. When I say he's an offensive coach with a defensive mentality, I'm talking about, all offensive guys want to pass the ball. All right, how many passing yards? But who are you? And for Pep, it's about a tough football team. And to say you're a tough football team, you have to be able to run the football. And he's a fundamental coach. This past year, of just being able to compare notes. When you have an offensive guy, well, I'm looking at this. All right, this disguise you're looking, this is what's giving us trouble. Just comparing notes like that. And when you're a guy like me that's been in coaching this long, there are some guys that you've had when you get young, at a young age, and you have a plan for them. You see them eventually guys like me are going to move out. And it's the Pep Hamiltons, the Miles Smiths of the world that's going to be running it. And for me to have had a part in that and give them all of my experience and what I know, exciting time.
All right, we got some questions from fans, a few of them. Questions presented by Ford.
Yes.
Coach, all right, Dan wants to know, because the draft is coming up here in a little bit, what will Coach Lovie like the focus to be on at the draft?
Well, and I'm not trying to run away from the question, but it's
a bit early for this.
It's always the best available. I don't know exactly, what's the best available out there, but I just know if someone said, hey, we need a defensive lineman, I wouldn't disagree with that. If someone said, hey, Lovie, how about our defensive backfield? I wouldn't disagree with that. Some people are going to say, of course, the linebacker position. Then you look, but it's always about, scoring points and what we have offensively. I would say that we have a lot of pieces in place, but to just add as many smart athletes as we can that have our philosophy, that's the neat part about where we are as we build and come in all together.
How much do you enjoy the draft process, the build up to it?
I love evaluating prospects and, my college background of seeing them at a certain, a certain level of skill level and them growing. But I like getting young players, where as you come in, normally you can get their minds a lot easier when they first get into the league. But that evaluation process, and being a head football coach and just being in football this long has allowed me to work through a lot of things. And then for us, we have a profile for every position. And so we know exactly what we're looking for. And that's what I was impressed with Nick so much this first year, on how we got on the same page with what we were looking for. Nick, this is what we're looking for defensively at every position, and how Nick, as he said, adapted to it right away. So, I'm looking forward to it. I've already, what have you been doing in the interim? Well, 2 nights ago, I watched all of the, Senior Bowl, modern technology. Everything anybody
right
does, you have it instantly.
Every play,
yes. From practice in the game.
From practice in the game. So start watching all of the all-star games and just putting this together. I know we're going to we have a lot of picks coming up. Again, hopefully you can see the excitement that we have for that process.
Well, along those lines, Barry wants to know what excites you about this team for 2022.
Oh, just the potential. And you look at how we played. All right, the team up north was the winner. One of the teams north of us was the winner in our division last year. We beat them, we split with them, and we had an opportunity to beat them again. In a situation where we weren't playing, people could say we weren't playing for an awful lot. So and that, there are goals that you put in place. It's about getting in the tournament, getting in. One way to get in is to win your division. I've had a chance going through to see the personnel, so a lot more familiar. I'd never gone into a situation as a head football coach where I knew so much about the team going in. That's what I'm excited about.
Yeah, how big a benefit do you think that is? Being in the building for a year, knowing it.
Huge benefit. And, other places, of course, being in my third time around, the conversation with, hey, I'm Lovie Smith and you're who and all of that. it's not like that. As I start calling our players, we have a relationship already. And one thing about being a defensive coordinator too, I start calling guys. Defensive guys all picked up right. They know my number. I've been calling them. Most of the offensive guys I haven't talked. A lot of them haven't talked to them yet. Some of them didn't pick up. Who is this strange number? So I'm kind of looking forward.
They're gonna have to enter your number into their
I'm
phones,
looking forward to
yeah.
them knowing my number, and I'm looking forward. It's about offense, defense. I'm involved. I want to get to know the guys, and that's what I got from my role this past year of just being around the guys. We have some good. You got a chance, of course, to meet. We had some great men in the building, and we're going to get some more great men in.
And just for the record, before the next question, there were a few offensive guys in the building right now watching a press conference. I know Jimmy Morrissey, he just finished his rookie year, so he was here, as well as a few others, as well as one of the greatest Texans ever, Andre Johnson, in the house.
Yeah, Andre, I got a chance a little bit, and I was talking to Andre, he eventually is going to be a Hall of Famer.
Yep.
Hope we get news right away, but someone, you talk about our program, to have that type of impact, and I knew all about him before, so I'm excited, and I hope that happens for him. You mentioned Jimmy Morrissey, a guy that's so special to me, coached both of us, named Bob Junkel, who recruited me to Tulsa from out of East Texas. I also coached Jim. So these relationships that you get in football are pretty special.
All right, we've got questions presented by Ford. This one from Theo. He said, you talked about the fans in your press conference. What is so special about football in Texas? And I know last year you and I were walking over the tunnel from training camp, and I asked you what it was like to be in Texas, and you were so excited to be back. And this was in August during training camp, so I can't even imagine now how excited you must be. But what makes it so special to be the head coach and about football here in the state?
Well, there's a lot of states that, from my time in sports, I've been able to go all over the country, and a lot of different states think that their football is the best around. I just know from my experience growing up, it's been about sports and football in general most of my life, and it is a religion to people. They are so involved in it, and they're so knowledgeable about football and how they want it to be played a certain way. That's just who I am. My belief in coaching, how you do things, is based on me just growing up in the state of Texas. So to get a chance to come back and lead our professional program, the Houston Texans, and I think there's so many people that I know, and they know what I believe. A lot of my beliefs, though, I got them here. To win a championship, you have to play great defense. Everybody knows it's about scoring points and what the offense is. You got to play great defense. People, it's just, all right, now special teams. No. Another athlete that I hope gets into the Hall of Fame is the greatest return of all time, Devin Hester. He was a special teams player. So it's just not lip service. I'm giving to those three phases going together. And I've been in situations where we're playing good ball, and to know that fourth phase where the fans are involved in a home field advantage that you get out here, that's what we're going to get. I showed the guys, look at the stadium right now. I was telling some of the defense guys, look at the stadium right now. A lot of empty seats. Soon there's going to be a time where you're not going to see these empty seats. The fans are going to come back. Right now we can't expect them to like a lot of things that we're doing, but that day is coming.
Hey, you just brought up special teams. You obviously had a big role in that. This year we'd see you out at practice helping out. Frank Ross doing some things. Talking to Devin Hester, who you just mentioned, I got a chance to Zoom with him last night.
Oh, yeah?
He said you always had a role in it. You would come in the special teams coach's room, ask pointed questions from time to time. How important is special? You've mentioned a little bit about it, but how important is it to continue the success that you had last year and build on that?
It's special. Nick talked a little bit about that. There's offense, defense, and of course there's special team, but there are some guys that are going to be our core special team players, and their role is important. And it's just not lip service to it. It's time, giving Frank the amount of time that he needs to implement our system. But me as a head football coach, of putting that emphasis on it. And again, that's just not going to be taught from practice time to the players that we allot to our special teams. That's how we're going to win football games, based on what we do with our special team.
Hester's happy for you, by the way. He said congratulations.
We are as well. Coach, I know you've got a busy day ahead of you, a busy few weeks, but what can you tell us about the immediate future? What's next for you?
Well, what's next for us? As we talk about bringing our fans back and everybody getting excited about our team is, I think one of the first things you have to do. First day on the job, first week on the job, of course, is getting the staff in place. We're not going to play a game tomorrow. It's getting our staff in place. The response that I've gotten has been really good on guys with opportunities that are turning down situations to come here. So getting the staff right, making contact, of course, with our players, and then the process. All-star games, free agency, and, of course, in the draft.
How soon do you think some of those spots are going to get filled?
Soon, and very soon. It's coming along great right now. That's why when people say, I mean, of course, we're biased, but Houston's a great place to live in. And there's a lot of great things happening. You know, when I first went to Chicago, Dusty Baker was the head. Was the Cubs manager of the Cubs. So I got a chance to know him then. And I hadn't talked to Dusty since I got the job. Of course, doing their playoff runs and all that. And I'm going to call Dusty, you know, as soon as I get a chance to him. Letting I'm still following you, Dusty. You know, I followed him in Chicago, and now I followed Dusty down here to Houston too. And again, what I would ask the fans is just be with us. We're talking an awful lot right now. Eventually, you're going to like the product we put on the field.
All right, well, hopefully Dusty doesn't go anywhere, and that means that Lovie Smith's not going to go anywhere. But for now, thank you so much for the time.
Thank you for having me.
Congratulations. We're so lucky to have you remaining in Texas here and now as head coach. Lovie.
Thank you.
All right, I know you got a busy
All
day.
right.
Thanks so much for the time.
Lovie Smith, the new head coach of the
Just
Houston
heard from the
Texans.
new head
Check out
coach.
that
There's his
resume
long
there.
resume and years of experience in the league, over 2 decades in the NFL, 11 as head coach in the NFL. And we've got a special guest joining us again to weigh in on the big news today. A familiar face, Jonathan Joseph.
Good to see you, Jonathan.
Our very own Texas
greatest
legend.
quarterback
We
in
matched today,
Texas
JJ.
history.
Oh, you see me? I got the memo.
I didn't even know you were going to be on this show until I just saw you. And here you are. All right, your thoughts on Lovie Smith being named head coach?
Oh, I think it's a big step. You know, I think obviously with his track record, you know, being here last year, continuity as they spoke about today. But I think the players like him. I think that's a big thing, getting players to play hard for you. And I think obviously getting some stability in the franchise. You know, he's able to be a leader. He's been a leader in 3-4 other different spots. With, you know, taking one team to the Super Bowl. Obviously, they didn't win it, but it's hard just to get there in this league. So, you know, he's able to do something right. And when he went to that Super Bowl, he didn't have a QB1, you know, of what people look at it. He was Rex Grossman, exactly. And played great special teams and did all the small things that get you there. And I think, you know, this team is sitting in the same type of position, not obviously Super Bowl, but base foundation, build off of it, and I think he's the right guy for it.
In your playing days, you went against a Lovie Smith team a time or two. Most notably, it was 2012. Texans are 7-1. The Bears are 7-1. You guys go up into Chicago and you win that one. But what are some of your memories of Lovie Smith coached teams? What did you have to prepare for and be ready for?
Just a tough mentally team. You know, obviously, defensively, they're going to pressure the quarterback, play their style of defense, but they want to create turnovers. They want to get their hands on the ball in as many ways as they can, whether it's offense, defense, or special teams, put points on the board. No, they were really known for their defense up in Chicago for a lot, but I think, you know, look over the times what they was able to do at the running back position with Thomas Jones and those guys. Had Brandon Marshall for a minute there, and I think they was able to make it to the Super Bowl. So with that staff and with those guys there, I think, you know, fast forward to 15, 20 years now, I think as time has evolved, you look at it, he's been able to do the same thing when he came here last year and take this defense, and they improved, plus 10 or 20, you know, in the takeover margin. So I think anytime you can create those takeovers, you give the offense the ball to put up points.
All right, we just heard from Lovie Smith a little while ago. One of the key takeaways we were discussing earlier is the fact that he's going to call plays on defense. That's something he's going to retain as head coach, and then Pep Hamilton for the offense. What do you like about that, and what did you see from last year's defense, and what do you think that he might do this year a little bit differently?
I think that says that he's very hands-on. I think he knows his role for this team. I think, you know, his biggest stamp obviously is being a head coach, and him just being a leader. I think that's just natural fit for him. So he can do that and at the same time be a D coordinator. You've seen guys do it before, like Mike Zimmer or whoever else, and I know I played with Zimmer, and I know the attention to detail that he was able to bring to that defensive side of the ball. And I think that can be a strength of this team right now, being a, you know, defensive side of the ball. So him going over there and having all the trust that they have in Pep Hamilton. So when you have somebody like Pep that you can put your trust in to get the offense going and do things the right way, he can put his focus over there on that side of the ball.
Hey, as a player who you saw different coaches come through at various points in your career, what's the benefit you think of having guys who are in the building who do have head coaching experience like Lovie Smith, who also have coordinating experience like Pep Hamilton? What sort of benefit does that bring to you guys as players?
I think it just makes the game plan a lot easier. When you have questions or things that you can ask, you know, you don't have to go to 2 or 3 different people. You know exactly who you can go to, and it stops right there. You know, It's all the same philosophy. It's going to be taught this way. Everybody's going to be on the same page. You don't have to go to this coach or that coach, and they're telling you two different things. It's going to come back to one person, that person at the top. And I think that's the easier way it's always been for me when you have those people in the building, to where whether it's Romeo Cornell or Mike Vrabel, or when I was with Mike Zimmer, those guys, or Vance Joseph, whoever it may be, when you know at the top they're teaching each and every coaching position the same thing, the players are a lot more comfortable knowing that it's all the same.
All right, we saw Andre Johnson here a little bit earlier. Obviously, big week for Andre Johnson. You know, he's going to be a Hall of Famer eventually someday. You know, what conversations have the two of you had about the change of this team and the coaching direction going with Lovie Smith?
We just talk about it. We talked about it briefly probably before he was hired Sunday. I think Sunday. It was early in the day Sunday, actually. And we spoke about it just because I think we both care about the team, about the city, the franchise. And we want to see this team do well. The city deserves it. And I think with Lovie, we both seen him over the years, and we both support him, obviously, but we think he's the right hire for this team, obviously. There's going to be several different candidates out there, and there's only one job available, you know, and that's his job here. So I think only one guy can get hired, and he's the guy. He got our support. You see other guys that came up to show up today. Obviously, Andre's a Hall of Famer guy, and his resume speaks for itself. He'll get in there when that time comes, whether it's this week, next week, or however it may be. But just to have a guy supporting you like Andre, and obviously you've seen Lovie giving him a shout out today.
And yourself. Don't sell yourself short.
But, you know, I think I get
he
enough
talked about
props.
the Texans' history. I mean,
Yes,
you guys are
for
very
sure,
much a
for
part
sure.
of it. I mean, he wasn't here when you guys were playing. He's obviously played against you guys. But the fact that he knows what the history of this team has been and to get back there
And I
again.
think, you know, if I'm correct, he's from Texas, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's
Yes,
from
Big
Texas, so
Sandy.
he understands football. He knows it at the highest level. You know, that's why he's a defensive mentality guy, because, you know, he's very old school with that approach. And I think, you know, he brings some discipline to this team also. Discipline goes a long way. I think if you look at the playoffs over this past year, it's probably been one of the most exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And it came down to the final play almost on every drive.
Yeah.
So they teach you the small things, whether it's situational football, turnovers, or whatever it may be. The game is never over, and your team always has a chance.
I think it's very interesting the respect you guys are paying for coming back like an announcement like this. It's also interesting hearing from some of his former players. The announcement went out at 6 o'clock last night. That's when it was made official by the Texans. By 7 o'clock, we were able to get Brian Urlacher, who's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, Devin Hester, who's going to be in the Hall of Fame someday. We were able to get them on Zoom. They were excited to talk about how excited they were for Lovie Smith. I think that speaks volume. Both guys that didn't play for him, like you and Dre, and guys who did. I mean, this guy's got some gravitas. This guy's got some juice, if you want to say, right?
Oh, for sure. When I came here, Danielle Manning came here with me.
Yes.
So that's all I heard about was Lovie. I played with, you know, Tim Jennings. I didn't play with him, but we both from South Carolina under the same agency. I always heard about him. Tank Johnson came to Cincinnati from Chicago. I always heard about Lovie. Cedric Benson came to Chicago, came to the Bengals from there. So I've always heard great things about him, the way he was coaching. And, you know, early on in your career, you're always looking for someone that's a player's coach, that's going to do right by the players, but at the same time hold players accountable. And I've always heard the same thing about him, like I've mentioned earlier to someone else about Marvin Lewis. The same type of style, same type of discipline approach. And I think I just can't wait to see how it plays out for him, because I'm excited.
You've been through some coaching changes in your career as well. Now, if this is a unique situation because you've got a coach being fired, a new coach being hired, but it's someone within the building. As a player, what's your perspective? I would imagine it's a little bit of a relief because you sort of know what you're getting into. You know, there's some familiarity there with the head coach that's coming in. He knows you, you know him. I mean, talk about that situation from a player's perspective, what might be going through their heads right now.
I think it is unique, but I guess when I heard that yesterday, I said it's unique, but I don't think it's as unique as people make it, because it's no different than a defensive coordinator or offensive coordinator getting fired and the wide receiver or tight end coach getting bumped up and being the head guy. So I think people will still have the same respect and look at it the same way. And I think when you have the proven track record and resume, that overrides everything. And I think Lovie, you know, checks all those boxes and things like that. But I think it's not as foreign as people make it, you know. But I think just at the head coaching position, obviously the previous coach being a one-year guy, then the next coach coming in, I think that's probably a little unique. But this the NFL, and, you know, that's the way business is done in the NFL. So when business is done that way, you have to do business accordingly.
All All right, good stuff. Jonathan Joseph, thank you so much for joining us.
No
Don't be a
problem. Thank
stranger.
you.
Come by anytime.
Thank
Love
you.
seeing Jonathan.
We love
He's the
seeing
best.
Jonathan Joseph. Hopefully not under these circumstances. You know?
For sure, for sure.
No more head coaching press conferences. But thanks so much for your time, for your input. That's going to do it for Texans Live, presented by Methodist. Thank you all so much for watching. Check out HoustonTexans.com. We'll have all the coverage of this press conference, stories, and much, much more. Thanks for watching, and as always, go Texans.
It's crazy because I